By the mid-1960s, Pontiac had become one of the brightest stars in Detroit's crowded sky. It was a division that just a decade earlier had struggled to stand apart, but by 1965, the tide had turned. The combination of bold styling, wide-track handling, and clever marketing had transformed Pontiac into a powerhouse. In that single model year, Pontiac sold over 800,000 vehicles, a number that spoke volumes about America's appetite for cars that looked exciting and felt modern. The brand was no longer an afterthought in General Motors' lineup. It had carved out a strong identity, sportier than Oldsmobile, more youthful than Buick, yet still substantial enough to appeal to families moving up in the world. From 1965 through 1968, Pontiac would ride a wave of success, eventually topping out at nearly 900,000 sales by the end of the decade. But to many enthusiasts, 1965 stands apart. This was the year when Pontiac's full-size cars reached what many still consider their pinnacle of design. The lines were clean but not plain, confident without being overdone. There was a sense of balance in the proportions, long, wide, and low, that perfectly captured the optimism of mid-60s America. It was within this moment of success and style that Pontiac offered a station wagon unlike any other, a car that blended everyday practicality with an unexpected dose of elegance. Among Pontiac's full-size offerings in 1965, none carried more prestige than the Bonneville Safari. While the Catalina Safari served as the family-friendly choice, available in both 6- and 9-passenger forms, the Bonneville wagon sat on a different tier entirely. It wasn't just another utility vehicle, it was a statement piece, aimed at buyers who wanted the practicality of a station wagon without giving up luxury or status. That distinction came at a price. The base Catalina Safari could be had for just over $3,200, but stepping up to the Bonneville meant spending at least $3,632. That figure placed it above nearly everything else Pontiac built, including the Bonneville Coupe, sedan, and even the convertible. Remarkably, it cost more than the Grand Prix, the division's personal luxury flagship. Because of that steep price tag, production was limited. Pontiac sold over 22,000 6-passenger Catalinas and more than 15,000 9-passenger versions. Yet only 6,460 Bonneville Safaris left the factory. Even when new, it was a rare sight on suburban driveways. Today, that scarcity has made it one of the most sought-after wagons of its era. In a marketplace crowded with practical choices, the Bonneville Safari stood apart as something rarer, a wagon built not just to carry a family, but to carry a sense of pride. That sense of pride was evident the moment you laid eyes on the Bonneville Safari. This wasn't a plain family hauler, it was a wagon dressed with the same attention to style that Pontiac gave its most glamorous models. The body carried that long, low, wide stance that defined mid-60s Pontiacs, with lines that flowed gracefully from nose to tail. At the rear, the design reached its high point. Spanning the tailgate was a trim piece that spelled out Bonneville in block lettering, a touch of mid-century modern flair that emphasized the car's horizontal proportions. Unlike many wagons that ended with flat, boxy panels, the Safari's rear quarter carried sculpted contours that suggested movement even when parked. They weren't fins in the old sense, but subtle shapes that kept the car from ever looking heavy or plain. The tailgate itself followed the traditional formula. The window lowered neatly into the panel, allowing the gate to swing down like a classic wagon. Later, General Motors wagons would experiment with the clamshell design in the 1970s, but in 1965, simplicity and elegance ruled the day. Even small construction details told a story. The rear quarter was actually made from 2 pieces of sheet metal, with a seam finished on the upper edge but left visible near the tip. A reminder that even a premium wagon was built with cost in mind. Yet from a few feet back, what you noticed wasn't the seam at all, but the confident, sculpted presence of a wagon that carried itself with dignity. If the exterior announced the Bonneville Safari's elegance, the interior sealed the impression. Step inside, and you were greeted by a cabin that felt more like a well-appointed living room than a family wagon. Pontiac spared no effort in making sure the Safari looked and felt special the moment the door closed behind you. The steering wheel itself was a work of art, crafted from lucite with a handsome wood insert. It glowed in the sunlight and set the tone for everything around it. Across the dash stretched panels of genuine walnut, not the simulated wood found in most other General Motors cars of the day. That choice alone spoke volumes. Pontiac wanted the Safari to feel authentic, not dressed up with cheap imitations. The dashboard carried a distinctive driver-oriented layout. 3 large gauges angled toward the driver, framed by polished trim, while the center section housed the radio, heater controls, and lighter in an arrangement that looked almost like a second radio at first glance. To the right, a chrome grab handle waited for the passenger, with Bonneville proudly spelled out above it, complete with its own reading light. What truly stood out was the sense of craftsmanship. Every switch, every knob felt deliberate, built to last. Even without air conditioning on this particular example, the cabin carried an aura of refinement. You didn't just ride in a Bonneville Safari. You experienced it, surrounded by materials and details that reminded you this was the most expensive Pontiac wagon you could buy. Practicality may have been the reason buyers looked at a station wagon, but in the Bonneville Safari, even the cargo area was finished with care. Open the tailgate, and you didn't find bare metal or simple linings. Instead, Pontiac dressed the space in padded vinyl panels that gave the wagon a refined, almost upholstered look. The kind of detail you might expect in a luxury sedan found its way into the rear of this car. Running across the floor were polished metal strips that not only protected the surface, but also caught the light, adding a sense of richness. The same treatment extended onto the tailgate itself, so whether you were loading groceries, luggage, or sports gear, the area felt tailored rather than utilitarian. This particular Safari was a 6-passenger model, without the fold-away third seat that turned some wagons into 9-passenger haulers. But in many ways, that only emphasized its character. It wasn't about cramming in as many people as possible. It was about offering comfort, space, and quality for those who valued refinement over sheer numbers. Other manufacturers, like Ford, would later experiment with tailgates that swung both down and sideways. Pontiac hadn't gone that route yet in 1965, but the Safari didn't need gimmicks. Its strength lay in how it made even the workhorse side of a wagon feel special. Of course, the Bonneville Safari wasn't just about good looks and fine trim. Beneath the hood beat the heart of a true Pontiac, an engine that gave this wagon the muscle to back up its style. Standard equipment was the 389 cubic inch V8, fitted with a 4-barrel carburetor and producing 325 horsepower when paired with the smooth turbo-hydromatic 400 automatic transmission. For a family wagon, that was more than enough to make highway cruising effortless and passing maneuvers confident. Buyers who wanted to save a few dollars at the pump could choose the 2-barrel 389, rated at 256 horsepower and designed to run on regular fuel. On the other end of the spectrum, Pontiac offered a series of performance upgrades, including the 389 Tri-Power at 338 horsepower, or the big 421 cubic inch V8, which in its most potent 3-2-barrel form cranked out 376 horsepower. These were numbers usually reserved for performance coupes and convertibles, yet they were available in a station wagon if the buyer wanted the ultimate blend of practicality and speed. Fueling all of these engines was the dependable Carter AFB carburetor, a design so effective that Edelbrock later patterned its own carburetors after it. Simple, durable, and easy to service, it helped make Pontiac V8s known for reliability as well as performance. Driving one of these Safaris today, even in base form, reveals why they earned such praise. The V8 doesn't roar so much as it hums, smooth and velvety, yet strong enough to remind you of the power under your right foot. The only real weak point was the timing gear set, which could fail if neglected. Otherwise, the combination of Pontiac's i8 and the turbo-hydromatic 400 stood as one of the most satisfying powertrains of its era. For all its strengths, the Bonneville Safari still reflected the engineering standards of its time. Nowhere was this more evident than in its braking system. In 1965, Pontiac, like most manufacturers, equipped its cars with a single-chamber master cylinder. That meant if a brake line failed or fluid was lost, the entire system could give out, leaving the driver with nothing but the emergency brake to rely on. It wasn't until 1967 that federal regulations pushed automakers to adopt safer dual-chamber designs. For owners today, that makes upkeep especially important. Brake hoses, lines, and wheel cylinders need to be inspected carefully, and the parking brake must always be in working order. Many enthusiasts retrofit their cars with a dual master cylinder for peace of mind, but even in stock form, the system can be safe if properly maintained. Aside from the brakes, the Pontiac Viv 8 itself had only one common weakness: the factory timing gear. The nylon-coated teeth could wear or break, causing the engine to slip out of time. Replacing it with modern components solves the issue, and once done, the engine becomes nearly bulletproof. Looking back today, the 1965 Bonneville Safari stands as more than just another family car. It represents the moment when Pontiac proved that even a station wagon could carry elegance, performance, and pride. Built in limited numbers, it was rare when new, and even rarer now, making every surviving example a prized piece of Pontiac history. For collectors, it offers the best of both worlds: the practicality of a full-size wagon and the refinement of Pontiac's flagship trim. For enthusiasts, it's a reminder of when Detroit dared to add beauty to utility, when cars weren't just about getting from one place to another but about doing it with style. What sets the '65 Safari apart is not only its scarcity, but the way it captured the spirit of mid-60s America. Long, low, and wide, it mirrored the optimism of the era. Inside, it gave families a taste of luxury that few wagons could match. Under the hood, it had the muscle to back it up. That blend has earned it the title in the eyes of many as the best-looking Pontiac wagon of all time. How about you? Do you remember seeing a Bonneville Safari on the road, or maybe riding in one back in the day? Share your memories in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Like this video if it brought back a smile, and subscribe to join us as we uncover more hidden gems from America's motoring past.